Good evening, sports audience. How's everybody doing out there tonight? I am Mike Aguilar. I am your host for this is Sports Zone. Coming to you live like we do each and every week here via the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Radio Network. We got a good show for you tonight. We'll be joined by Dave Hastings in a matter of moments, Erich a little bit after that. And boy, do we got a lot to talk about tonight. So the start of the new NFL season is tomorrow. But for the last 2 days, we have had our annual tradition of the legalized tampering period in the NFL, which means everybody gets to jump on making deals and free agent signings, trades, and we've had a weekend. I'll say that. It started with Antonio Brown getting traded to the Raiders for a third and fifth round pick. That was over the weekend, and then within the last hour, the Giants. I never really thought it was going to happen. I always knew it was a possibility, but I never really thought they'd wind up trading OBJ. So Odell Beckham Jr. has now been traded to the Cleveland Browns for a first-round pick, a third-round pick, and safety Jabril Peppers, who himself was a first-round pick a couple years ago. He, of course, being a safety. So the Giants get that haul. And like I said, we're going to be joined by Hastings and Erich in a little while. I'm sure Erich has a whole bunch to say about that one. But let's run down the list here of some of the moves that have happened since the last time we were on the air. The Denver Broncos did, in fact, trade Case Keenum to the Washington Redskins. This comes after the Broncos, of course, added Joe Flacco via a trade from the Baltimore Ravens. Pittsburgh traded offensive lineman Marcus Gilbert to the Arizona Cardinals. The Giants traded Olivier Vernon along with a fourth-round pick to the Cleveland Browns. So this is the second trade the Giants and the Browns have made in the last week. They get offensive guard Kevin Settler along with a fifth-round pick. Michael Bennett was traded by the Philadelphia Eagles to the New England Patriots last week. Eric Weddle was released by the Ravens, and he then signs a 2-year deal with the Los Angeles Rams. Carlos Hyde, who was released by the Jacksonville Jaguars, signs a 1-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. Dwayne Allen, the tight end, goes to the Miami Dolphins. As I said, Antonio Brown was traded by the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Oakland Raiders for a third-round pick and a fifth-round pick. So you got that there. Oakland Raiders trade the guard Kalichi Osemele along with a 2019 sixth-round pick to the New York Football Jets for a fifth-round pick. Not a bad move for the Jets, who needed to revamp the offensive line, so they get that. Some other moves that have happened in the last week. Danny Amendola is now a Detroit Lion for 1 year. Malik Jackson signs a 3-year deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. Trent Brown, offensive tackle, goes to the Oakland Raiders. Deshaun Jackson was traded from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back to the Philadelphia Eagles, where he, of course, began his career. And I'm sure we will go to Landon Collins. We talked about he was not given a franchise tag last week, signs a 6-year, $84 million deal with the Washington Redskins with $45 million guaranteed. And I'm sure we will talk about a lot more of the Jamison Crowder, the wide receiver, signs with the Jets. Jets had a busy last 24 hours because it looked like they were going to sign both linebackers, Anthony Barr and C.J. Mosley. Anthony Barr decides to pull old winky dink on them and go back to Minnesota. I think the Jets wound up getting a better linebacker there anyway. But let's bring in Dave Hastings here to talk about it. Dave, have you been keeping up with everything going on in the NFL today?
I've definitely been trying. I mean, the past, 36 hours has been pretty freaking nuts.
Yeah. It's like I got the ESPN browser up here just to keep track. Frank Gore signs a 1-year deal with the Buffalo Bills. We're going to talk about the big one that has just gone down in the last hour once Erich gets here. But before that, I think a good place to start, because to me, this whole thing kicked off with Antonio Brown getting traded to the Raiders for a third and a fifth-round pick. Now, we talked a little bit about what we thought the Steelers needed to get to make a trade like this. You hear a third and a fifth round pick, and of course, Brown wanted to renegotiate his contract. I guess that was a big demand that scared a lot of teams off. But you hear that the Steelers get this return for Antonio Brown. What was your initial thought there?
I think the biggest thought I have is they were actually, they were being selective on who they sent them to. I mean, the Patriots reportedly offered them a second and a fourth for Antonio Brown, and they refused that trade. And, obviously I think we know why.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I think to me it was more being selective of, making sure it was a team that they weren't going to play, and making, because they don't play Oakland again until after his 3 years are actually over.
Oh, that's good.
Because they actually just played Oakland this past year.
That's smart.
So, I mean, to me, I think that's part of it. I think, like I said, the other part was they didn't want to send them to a team that they believed was, a piece or two away from a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, they had their little things that mattered to them that they were going to make sure that they did or didn't do. And he had his own little thing. And I think he seems like he's cool with going to Oakland. And then, they go sign the tackle Brown, so you give a little protection to Carr, especially after letting Osemele go to the Jets.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, I think the Patriots or the Steelers got less than what he's worth. But I think they went with the trade that made them the happiest when it came down to like, all right, look, we're going to eat $20 million on this. We got to get him out of here. He can't stay here. So, what's the, I guess the lesser of all evils is maybe the best way to say it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I tell you, the one thing I thought of is like when Jimmy Garoppolo, when the Patriots traded him a couple years ago, I heard people saying, because they got the second round pick for him, they talked about how Belichick loves those early second round picks. He treats them like first rounders. I look at the third and the fifth round pick that the Steelers gets back. That's their wheelhouse. You look at guys like Mike Wallace, Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster. Those were picks in between the third and the fifth rounds. I think Santonio Holmes kind of fits in that category too. So they took picks in rounds that they feel they can nail every time. So while I agree, totally, I mean, you look at what the Raiders got for Cooper. We'll talk about what the Giants just got for OBJ. I think that part of what you said being selective, but I think also the fact that he wanted that he demanded to renegotiate the contract was part of that too. They definitely got less than they should have for Brown. But when you look at it from the Steelers' perspective, I think they're thinking, okay, we'll take this. Everybody's thinking that we got less for him, but at the end of the day, if we nail these picks, this trade is a win for us.
Well, yeah, and that's really all. When it's all said and done, the guys they draft in the third and fifth round, this year with those draft picks, well, their contracts are going to come up when Antonio Brown's, eligible to be a free agent again. So you'll really be able to sit there and say whether or not they really got, who got the better end of the deal. Mm-hmm. And, when it's all said and done, the Steelers are not an organization that's going to keep somebody there that's unhappy or somebody that makes them unhappy either way.
Right. Now, well, in this case, I think it's a little bit of both. So you got that. Just looking at some more of these deals that have gone through. Tyrann Mathieu signs with the Chiefs for 3 years. Nick Foles is a Jacksonville Jaguar. And Teddy Bridgewater went back to the Saints. So it looks like my idea from last week is completely out the window. 4 years, $88 million, $50 million guaranteed. Dave, I think we can both agree that's insane for Nick Foles.
I don't think he's worth it, but if Jacksonville thinks he's worth it, by all means, have fun paying him that money.
Well said. Well said.
I mean, I don't think he's worth that dollar amount, but I personally think they maybe got slightly better than Bortles, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think slightly is being – I mean – definitely better because we've seen what Foles can do in the right environment and we've seen what Bortles can do. So I slightly is a good word for that. Devin Funchess goes to the Indianapolis Colts for 1 year, $10 million. Dante Fowler re-signs with the Rams for 1 year. Just running down here. We talked about Mosley to the Jets, 5 years, $85 million with $51 million guaranteed. If the Jets had gotten both him and Anthony Barr, I would have been amazed. But the fact that they still come out of it with CJ, I love CJ Mosley. I thought when the Ravens took him, I thought they got the next Ray Lewis, in my opinion. He may not reach that level. That's a really good linebacker for the Jets to rebuild their defense around.
Well, yeah, and I think if they, like you said, I think if they were able to get both of them, all of a sudden you're really turning that defense around really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Or improving it pretty drastically, I guess I should say, because they do have some pretty young talent on that defense. But, I think obviously Barr has every right to do whatever he wants to do. But I was kind of shocked by that, in all honesty. I mean, I wouldn't want to stay in Minnesota and play with Kirk Cousins, but, to each their own. But, yeah, that would have been a huge move. But as a Cowboys fan, kind of happy about it just simply due to the fact that Dallas plays the Jets this year. So slightly was happy about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we'll talk about the Browns a little bit here. They had Sheldon Richardson, 3 years, $39 million to go along with Olivier Vernon. And you got Myles Garrett on that defense. You got Larry Ogunjobi. I have no idea how to pronounce that. That's going to be a pretty scary defense, in my opinion.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, the Browns as a whole realized the same thing that the Rams realized last year. When you have your quarterback who you believe is your quarterback of the future on his rookie contract, you have to put pieces around him to try and make a run before you shell out $30 million a year to the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you see the Browns doing. I think they believe he's the guy. From what you saw of him last year, he looks like he should be the guy. And I think for them, they're like, screw it, we're going to throw everything in and we're going to make a run with, over the next couple of years with him as he develops and see what it turns into. So, I mean, it's not like that division has gotten any better since free agency started. That's for damn sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So just keep going down the list here. Latavius Murray signs for 4 years with the New Orleans Saints. They are clearly moving on from Mark Ingram. Then we'll move to the Buffalo Bills real quick, who miss out on Antonio Brown, but they had John Brown, and Cole Beasley is now a Buffalo Bill, and it looks like 4 years, $29 million with 14 guaranteed. I know we talked about it last week. Still kind of sad to see Cole Beasley go.
Well, yeah, I mean, as a Cowboys fan, it's sad to see him go, but as, a guy, as a fan of somebody of him as a player and as an individual, and, I follow him on Twitter, and, I like Cole Beasley. I mean, obviously, I don't know him as a person, but, from what I know of him and from my, what I've seen following him and everything, he just seems like a really down-to-earth, chill guy, and I'm a fan of him, and I'm just happy he got his money. I mean, you got to keep in mind, he's 29 years old. This was his last chance to sign a deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, he gets, almost $20 million in guaranteed money, which is what he was expecting and hoping for. Dallas and him, and fans and everybody, you knew Dallas couldn't do that for him. You knew it because they know they got to re-sign Amari Cooper. They've got to re-sign Tank. They've got to sign Dak. They've got to sign Zeke. So I think to me, it's one of those things where you just have to, say to yourself, I'm proud and happy for him. And, it sucks to see him have to leave Dallas, but it for him in the last couple of years of his career, it's the right thing for him to do. And I'm glad he got paid. I just hope that they can get him the ball. I mean, because God knows Dallas barely did during the season this past year. So hopefully they can get him the ball because the guy's proven year in and year out he can show out and he can show up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the one thing in his favor is, I mean, not like this made a difference before the Cowboys got Amari Cooper, but you don't see a clear-cut number one in Buffalo right now, unless I'm forgetting someone. They have some good wide receivers there, like Zay Jones or whatever. John Brown's always been a pretty good wide receiver, but he's more of a. It seems like, if I'm not mistaken, Brown and Beasley both slot guys, so that's going to be interesting to see how that one shakes out.
I mean, my guess is based on the quarterback play they got last year, they're looking for guys that can get open quickly.
Mm.
I think you're looking at a team that's going to run a spread offense and, quick, 2-3 step drops and get rid of the ball. And if you can't, start running with it. I mean, that was the one thing he could do all year last year, was be able to run the ball and run it well.
Mm.
So, if that's the case, maybe that's the offensive style they're looking for. And if it is, then you really couldn't have signed better wide receivers for that type of offense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And it's looking like the Kansas City Chiefs, who released Justin Houston over the weekend, it's looking like they're about to trade D Ford, the defensive end, to the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are going to give him a multi-year deal in the range of 5 years, $87.5 million. And this article doesn't say what the return is going to be yet. So this is interesting because the Chiefs didn't exactly have a great defense to begin with, and now they gave up arguably their two best defensive players.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting move, but if there's one thing we've always all known and seen consistently for years, more than a decade now, Andy Reid can build a competitive team.
Mm-hmm.
So, can he build a team that can win a Super Bowl? I don't know if we'll go that far, but he can put together a competitive team out there. And, maybe there's guys in the draft that they really like, and they're going to make sure that, with the extra picks, that they're able to trade up or do whatever they got to do to get them. And, or maybe there's a defensive player out there that hasn't been signed that they're eyeing. And, now that, first day or two has gone by and they haven't been signed yet, they know they can go get them. So the trade was worth it. But I think that, to me, when you really consider it and you really, really look at it, bottom line is they know in about 2 years, they're going to have to give Mahomes a contract that is going to blow away any contract that's come before it.
I mean, based off of last year, I would have to agree with you. Absolutely. And it's looking like the return is going to be a 2020 second-round pick. So that's just interesting, the fact that the Chiefs don't even get someone who's going to help them for next year in a draft pick. So
a team whose biggest weakness was their defense all year last year.
Yeah. Well, simply because Garoppolo got hurt, it looked like they had a whole hell of a lot of weaknesses there. But I do agree with you that defense was definitely one of them. So you got that. All right. So I just named a bunch of them more. You name one. What move stuck out to you? And obviously, we're trying to stall a little bit. Hopefully, Erich comes within the next few minutes here. What stuck out to you? What moves would you like to talk about there?
I mean, I think, seeing the deal that Kansas City gave Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, to pair him with, what's hopefully a healthy Eric Berry, because I really like Eric Berry and would love to see him be able to play again consistently. Gives them maybe one of the best back ends in the league, but I've always been a firm believer in building your defense from the front to the back, to the back, not back to the front. So, we'll see how that all unfolds. But I think that deal's interesting. I think the fact that, some of these safeties are coming off the board. You saw the deal that, like you mentioned, with Landon Collins. I mean, I think that's a major overpayment by Washington.
I do too.
I mean, I think Landon Collins is one hell of a good young safety. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to take away from what he's been able to do. But to pay a safety whose biggest issue is coverage, that much money to me is a very risky move. Especially when you could have re-signed Clinton Dix, who to me is a very similar safety. I don't think he's as good, but similar. That move really kind of shocked me. It goes along with them trading for Case Keenum, and thank God for the Washington Redskins. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, I totally agree with you with that statement.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't. That one really popped out to me. The Saints moving on from Ingram, or the fact that Teddy Bridgewater chose the Saints over getting a possible starting job in Miami because he just likes New Orleans better. And I also think that, there's a good chance maybe Peyton sat down with him and said, hey, look, Drew's only got another year or two. I don't have anybody waiting in the wings for taking over. Maybe you could be that guy for me. So you always got to realize you get a backup that spends a year or two in the same system and then takes over the starting role. Well, what that can do for your team, you really can have the opportunity to not really skip a beat when you change quarterbacks. So
that's a great point.
I thought that was impressive, or I should say, a good move for the Saints. But when it comes down to free agency, my mind stayed in the same spot this entire time. Dallas, just pay DeMarcus Lawrence and get it over with. They could have got him for $17.5 million a year last year, and now they're looking at anywhere from 19 to 22 because they wanted to do one more tag year on him, and he balled out again, and now here you are. So pay the man and get it over with.
Here's the deal. I agree with the sentiment, but I also say in this particular circumstance, hindsight is a bit 20/20 here because you look at where he was last year. Yeah, you could have had him for $17 million a year, but I don't think anybody was really convinced that was 100% legit what he did the last year because he hadn't exactly shown that type of consistency in the years before. So I understood why they gave him the franchise tag last year. And like I said, it's always hindsight 20/20 because if it doesn't work out, then you can get him you kind of name the price on that one. But if it does work out, then you're in the position that you're in right now where it's like you have to pay the guy $20 million a year.
Yeah, it's I mean, look, my man put up 10.5 sacks this year and was playing with a torn shoulder labrum since week 3 or 4. So
pay the man.
I just, to me, he's worth the money. You got to pay him, get it over with, and stop, sitting around. I'd love for Dallas to sign Earl Thomas, but I don't want them to spend $14 million a year on a safety who's missed, 16 out of the last 32 games. So, unless he's willing to come down to, that $10 million window, I'll pass on Earl Thomas. I'll take one of the, second-level safeties instead because, to me, even some of the second-level safeties like a Clinton Dix that are out there is an upgrade over Jeff Heath. No disrespect to Jeff Heath. Man makes some plays for Dallas, but he shouldn't be playing a starter role. He's not good enough for that.
And let me ask you something, because in the last week with everything going on with free agency, we had David Irvin announcing his retirement while smoking a blunt in a video he was making, because apparently we know he failed another PED test or whatever, probably for marijuana, and now apparently he says he's doing a Kaepernick out of protest of the NFL's marijuana policy. What did you make of that whole thing?
I mean, I think he sounds like an idiot, but I also think his point when it's all said and done is 100% correct. I think these guys are better off being able to smoke a joint at the end of a long day of practice or after a tough game than going home and popping opioids and different prescription drugs that could lead to ridiculous addiction problems when they get older. So I think his point is 100% correct. I think the way he handled it, I think the way he acted towards it was stupid. And by all means, you got to realize for how great or for how much potential he had, there's guys that are out there that are actually better than him that never even got an opportunity. So, for when that's one of my favorite things that, my dad taught me when I was younger. No matter how big you get, there's always somebody out there that's bigger. So, appreciate things. And I think that's, like I said, I agree with his point. I don't think he's wrong with the point he was making. I think what he was wrong about is A, how he handled it, and B, you're really if you got a problem with it and you want to say you're retiring from the game, then just say you're retiring from the game with a worded post. You don't need to make such a big deal about it that you're smoking a joint on a camera. Like, weed's not legal in Texas. If he was in Texas when he did that, cops could have came and arrested him. He was in California, so it's legal. But I'm just saying, if he was in a state like Texas, cops could have showed up at his door and arrested him and had that as evidence to get him in trouble, to press charges. So it's stupid crap like that you just like, you got to think before you act, man. And I think that's it. That moment for him was more where he's just like, F it. I'm doing what I want to do. I don't care.
Mm. And with that, because I totally agree with your point. Totally agree with you. He looks so stupid and ridiculous on that. But it's the time we've all been waiting for. He is here, so we will talk about this. Erich Tressler, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I thought the time everybody was waiting for was when you start the show.
Well,
don't wait for little old me. I mean, they're making me blush over here.
Well, I try. We try here. All right. So let's talk about this. So the Giants have had a busy week. Started with them trading Olivier Vernon to the Cleveland Browns. They get a 5th-round pick back along with Kevin Zeisler, the guard. They give up a 4th-round pick with Vernon. And then mere, I'd say within an hour before we went on the air, it happened, months of speculation. Odell Beckham Jr. has been traded to the Cleveland Browns for a 1st-round pick, a 3rd-round pick, and safety Jabril Peppers. Dave, we're going to get your comments on this, but Erich, I'm sure you have a lot to say about this.
I like it all. I got to be honest. As a Giant fan, I like it all. I like the return. I like a 1st and a 3rd. As long as we got at least a 1st, I was happy. Mm-hmm. He was becoming a cancer to the locker room. He's becoming a cancer to the young people around him, and the Giants don't want that. I think it kind of spoiled Landon Collins in the locker room over the last 2 years, and they needed a fresh start. So getting rid of Vernon, unfortunately, that meant getting rid of Collins, and now OBJ just means they're turning the page. They need a fresh start, and it's going to start with the running game of Saquon Barkley. They already addressed one offensive line need. They need a lot of offensive line help. So I'm hoping with one of their 2 first-round picks, they use it on an offensive lineman as well. Probably one offensive, one defensive lineman would probably make sense for the first 2 picks. I don't want to go quarterback. I don't want Dwayne Haskins. I do not want Kyler Murray. But overall, as a Giant fan, I'm not down about this. I know Odell's a talent. He's an otherworldly talent, but he's a talent with a big mouth and a lot of ego. And for as good as his talent is, he still only touches the ball 10 to maybe 12 times a game if he's lucky. So, I mean, yes, they're impact players, but I just think the Giants are ready to go in a different direction, and I like to hold back for them.
And I totally agree with you on that one. When I first started, when you look at what Brown got the Steelers, you look at what Cooper got the Raiders, for them to get a 1st, a 3rd, and you get a young player in Jabril Peppers, that's a really good haul. I mean, you could always say, oh, it would have been nice if they got a 1st and a 2nd-round pick, but you can't really argue that in today's climate and what you see players go for now in trades. So,
I mean, you just saw what Antonio Brown went for.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about that a little bit here. So, Dave, what were your thoughts about this trade?
I mean, look, the only thing that kind of confuses me about the trade was unless they didn't know they were going to go in with this game plan, but if you knew that you were going to trade Vernon, you knew you weren't going to tag Collins or sign Collins, you knew you were going to trade OBJ, why exactly do you keep Eli Manning? That to me is the only part I don't understand, unless it's basically like, hey, look, we know we can still probably get a top 3 pick with Eli as our starter, and fans love him, so we'll keep him. Other than that, I see absolutely nothing about that decision that makes sense unless you're going to take a quarterback for one of those 1st-round picks to let Eli mentor him.
Well, here's my question in response to that. I'll put this to both of you guys because, Erich, you mentioned that you would like to see the Giants get an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman with those 2 picks. What if they, because I agree with you, from everything I've heard, Haskins is not a guy you want as your starting quarterback. You don't want to take him in the first round. Seems like he's got bust written all over him. But what if the Giants were to turn around and trade one of those picks and get Josh Rosen?
Eric, that's all
I don't want him. I
I
don't want him at all. I'll be honest. I'm more than happy with one more year, Eli. Give him his farewell tour. However we do, we do. And then after that, the quarterback class coming out after that gets a lot better. So I'm not in love with this quarterback class. I'm not drafting Haskins high. I don't think he's worth it. If you want to draft a guy in the second or third round, do it. But I think you're better off riding Eli for a year and then finding his replacement after that. The year after, you're going to have a lot bigger names coming out. And I just think that it's going to be a better draft class. So I'm fine with Eli for one more year if that's the Giants' game plan. Ride the running game, protect him with a better offensive line, revamp the defense, and see what you can do this year. And then after that, sorry, Eli, we honored your contract. You're gone, and now we really move on. But it just doesn't make sense in this draft with this quarterback class to reach that high to get him. And, I mean, that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to be in the top 10 to get either Haskins or Murray, I think. And I don't think the Giants should use their first pick with that.
And, Dave, we'll go back to you, but I do want to say in response to what you had kind of posed there, from everything I've heard, it seems like Eli doesn't want to be a mentor to a young quarterback. So there's that. And when you hear a trade like this, to me, it seems like this is the ultimate show of faith in Eli in a way, because you're building the offense around him and Barkley. You add another offensive lineman. Yeah, you need more wide receivers right now. I think that kind of goes without saying. But I do think this is kind of a show in faith and to try to reload around him for one last ride. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the one thing people don't realize. I mean, with Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram, and you got Saquon Barkley, and the Giants had some young wide receivers last year that, when OBJ went down and, whatever it might have been, that didn't play half bad. I'm not saying they're future Hall of Famers by any means, but they didn't play half bad. So, I think the Giants feel pretty comfortable with their offensive weapons, and that's one of the main reasons they were willing to trade OBJ. I also think from the outside, they saw everything that Pittsburgh went through with Brown, and probably believe in the back of their head that, those days were coming with OBJ at some point or another as well. So maybe avoid that issue beforehand so you can actually get maximum value. But yeah, I mean, look, if I'm the Giants and I'm in rebuild mode, this is the great move. Because like Eric said, bottom line is, no matter how great you are at any skill position there is, you're not touching the ball more than the quarterback. So when it's all said and done, to pay a guy that much money when you don't, when you're trying to do other things and move in other directions, it just makes it to me. It makes sense to make that move and let a team who's trying to make a push for a division title this year deal with that guy and deal with that talent, and if it may be a headache as well.
I want to flip it now, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on what it does for Cleveland. Because real quick, I think this is a big move for Cleveland. I know the hole they gave up to get him, but to put a wide receiver now with a young, talented quarterback in Baker Mayfield who really didn't have a ton of weapons around him, I think it's a great move. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, I mean, you got Beckham and Jarvis Landry together. And my cousin in the chat room was like, the Browns got a lot of personality. I never wanted to see a Hard Knocks before in my life. I kind of want to see a Hard Knocks with the Cleveland Browns. Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham and Baker Mayfield. I would pay to watch that, truthfully. But I have to agree with you. This is a really good move for the Browns. And, I don't know what's going to happen with Kareem Hunt. You still got Nick Chubb in the backfield, too. You have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball now, because you got the Vernon move, you got Richardson. Yeah, Browns are making a big statement here. Dave?
I mean, to me, I think this makes the Browns the favorite for the division title.
See, I'm not ready to say that one yet, just because it is the Browns after all. Talent-wise, I agree with you, but I don't think we can coronate them just yet.
Yeah, see, I mean, Pittsburgh loses Antonio Brown. Pittsburgh loses Le'Veon Bell. I get it. Didn't have him last year. Is what it is. But they lose that talent. They traded their starting one of their starting offensive linemen to Arizona. Defensively, it's not like the Steelers really scare anybody defensively other than J.J. Watt. Or not J.J. Watt. The other Watt.
Yeah, I can't remember. Is it Nick? Nick?
Whatever.
Yeah.
He's the only one on that defense that really poses any type of threat to anybody, any offense.
TJ Watt.
There you go. I knew his initials. But so TJ Watt, only guy on the defense that puts fear in anybody. The Ravens lose Joe Flacco. I get it. Lamar Jackson was a starting quarterback for the remainder of the year, but still, you're getting the second-year quarterback. They let go of Crabtree. Their one starting running back got arrested. He's suspended, so I think they released him. So offensively, they really have no weapons that you can consider a threat. Defensively, lose Terrell Suggs, lose C.J. Mosley. So their best defensive player is what? Jimmy Smith, and he's, pushing 30 at corner and has had health issues the last 2 seasons. And the Bengals are the freaking Bengals. So I think it's more than fair to say that a move like this with what else the Browns have done so far makes them the favorite for the AFC North.
Yeah, I mean, listen, on paper, I agree with you. I'm just not ready to do it yet just because Cleveland doesn't exactly have a good track record on that. But anything could happen. Dave, I know you got
I'm also hearing rumors of Mark Ingram to the Ravens.
That'd be a good move for him. I question how much he has left and whether or not he can be a true lead back anymore. That's the only thing I would say on that. But, Dave, I know you got to get out of here, so we're going to let you go. Do you have any final thoughts before you get out of
here? Hey, always a pleasure, man. I love doing this. Glad the 3 of us got a chance to be on today. And, other than that, gentlemen, until the next one.
Yep. Dave Hastings, thank you so much for being here as always.
I'll see you at the wedding, right?
You know it, bud.
Remember, we got
and you're bringing somebody, right? Are you bringing Christine?
That's the game plan.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
And
look forward to seeing you guys there.
Well,
Eric, if for some reason she can't make it with me, I'll still bring somebody so I can fill that seat and not waste the seat. I promise.
Okay.
I got you.
Just remember, guys, we got one show left before the wedding. We do have one show left before the wedding.
One show, and then Dave, you got a helmet while I'm in St. Lucia. I don't think I can make any calls from there.
All right. I think I can handle that, bud.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, guys. I'll catch you later.
Yep. Have a good one. Dave Hastings, everybody. Thank you so much. All right. So we got about 5 minutes left here, Eric. So let's stay on the track here. In terms of free agency, because I think we can agree what we want the Giants to do, or at least what you would want the Giants to do in the draft. What else do you want to see them do over the course of the next month in free agency? It's got to be offensive line, right?
Yeah, offensive line is the number one. And then, honestly, defensive line, linebackers, honestly. We have Giants signed, I believe it was Antoine Bethea today as well.
Right.
Years. So now they have their safeties in Bethea and Jabril Peppers, so I'm not so worried there. Corners, we have what we have, but I really think we need to bolster our pathetic linebacking core and our defensive line now. Without Vernon, we're going to need some kind of pass rush. So I think those 2 things have to be the biggest things addressed in the draft. And if they can do that, I don't expect the Giants to be Super Bowl contenders next year. Hell, I'll be honest. I don't expect them to be necessarily division contenders next year. If they finish 500, I would be, probably happy with that. So with that being said, I'm on board for the moves they're making so far, and they really need to just work on those areas of need. And I think this team will start to really shape up in the next year or 2.
Well, I think it all depends on what they do in the next month. But I think if you trade away Beckham, you get the first round pick, you get the extra third round pick. You now have pretty decent haul of draft picks there. I don't know. I think another year where you don't compete for the playoffs, I look at that as a major miss, especially since I kind of all agree. If this is going to be Eli's last ride, you have to reload and give him a chance to go down swinging at the very least. So I don't know. I'm not saying I would mind all that much if they don't exactly compete for a division, but I just think it'd be a major disappointment for them if they don't.
Yeah, I just look at it a little different. I don't think it's a major disappointment. Like I said, I think Eli kind of knows that at this point, they're going to do their best to put the best roster they think they can around him. I don't think they're going to tank it, necessarily. But, I don't think this team has the horses necessarily right now. Maybe that changes in free agency. Maybe they go out and sign some guys that I'm surprised at. But as of right now, they got holes they need to fill, and I don't know if they're going to fill them all.
Well, all right. So we got about 2 minutes left here. So let's end it with this. You get to see Captain Marvel this weekend?
I did not. I've been so crazy between house stuff and wedding stuff. I haven't had a chance to do anything. I do plan on seeing it at some point, but I've heard very mixed reviews. And I heard it's a good movie. It's worth seeing, but it's definitely not one of Marvel's best. And even I was talking with a friend of mine who is pretty heavy into all this stuff, and asked him his review, and he pretty much said it felt like more like a Phase 1 Marvel movie than anything else.
Well, remember, you also have another friend who's really into that stuff and me here. So I concur with the majority of that assessment. I think it's better than most of the Phase 1 movies. I mean, obviously, you got Iron Man there. Iron Man is definitely better than this movie. It has some good moments. But, I would not put it in my top 10 of MCU movies. But it's worth it.
Is it even better than Captain America, the First Avenger? Is it better than the first Captain movie?
I would actually say yes. I would agree with that. Captain America, First Avenger, decent movie, but I remember falling asleep for 45 minutes. But I also got the movies for free because I was working at a movie theater at the time. And it was my second time watching the movie. And I fell asleep for about 45 minutes. So, yeah.
All right.
Definitely better than that one. All right, man. So we got less than a minute here. Thank you so much for being able to make it with us. I know you got a lot going on. I am ready for that wedding, too. Unfortunately, I'm coming stag. I'm coming by myself. So that's going to do it for us this week. Any last words, Eric?
No, just getting ready for March Madness. Hope everybody enjoys the next couple of weeks. They're the best weeks of the college basketball season by far. If you're not a sports fan, if you don't like March Madness, I don't care if you're not into college. If you're into college basketball, not into college basketball, just that tournament, a one-and-done tournament like that, all these teams, it is as exciting as it gets, and everybody should be watching.
Right on. Thank you, Eric Tressler. I am Mike Aglioloro. Thank you all for listening, and we will see y'all next week.